Good morning, YouTube. Today we're going to take a look at a pasture field or a paddock that we had created some damage to approximately a month ago. We don't really have any extra help or anybody that can come to the farm and rotate the livestock for us whenever we're away. So we will allot the livestock the time allotted that we're going to be away. And this here is a good example of resilience in the soil and Mother Nature's way of fixing damaged soil. As we all know, Mother Nature, as soon as there's bare soil, she's doing what she can to get it covered back up so we can reduce erosion and soil loss. This particular field has 30 days regrowth on it. We went away on vacation for 4 days. We allotted the cows 5 days worth of grazing, and my family and I, we loaded our saddle mules up in the trailer and we went away camping and trail riding for 4 days. We allotted the cows 5 days of grazing. While we were away, we had a rainfall of approximately 2 inches. And typically, if you look at the grazing behaviors of cattle, their largest meal of the day is first thing in the morning, and their second largest meal of the day is the last thing in the evening. And typically, if you watch the cattle, they'll go out and they'll graze in the mornings, and then usually, at least my livestock or my cattle will come back. They'll kind of group together about 9:30 in the morning, and they'll stay there until about in a group until approximately 11:30, 12 o'clock, and then they'll go back out and graze for a short period, and they continue doing that throughout the day. But typically what they'll do is whenever they group together, they group in a certain area. Maybe there's something there that's attracting them. Maybe it's a little bit of a breeze, a little bit of wind, maybe a tree hanging out over the field, perhaps a water tub, a mineral feeder. For whatever reason, there's something that attracts them to that certain spot in the field. Grazing cattle or rotating cattle up to 10 times a day, and is as little as every 4 to 5 days if we're going on vacation. But typically, if I'm here, we don't move the livestock any more than I feel is necessary, and I don't rotate the cows 10 times a day just because it's something to do. There's a reason behind it, whether we need to control invasive plants or plants that we don't want in the field because we're not clipping, or perhaps we're trying to do a high stock density grazing to get better distribution of the manure across the field. Perhaps we have some really thick stuff. As you'll see in the videos, a lot of my fields are in the maturity stages of growth, usually in seed, some of it not. Usually we have 100 to up to, we have as little as 60 days regrowth and as much as 365 days of rest periods on the fields. But typically the average on our fields is approximately 100 days. By leaving the fields go to seed, we have a tremendous seed bank built up in our soils, and we don't need to seed as much as we used to. And this here's a perfect example. Is if a lot of you folks are rotating or moving your cattle every 3 days, or if you're moving them once a day, we never really did move our livestock 3 to 4 days. We went from a 7 to 14 day rotation to a 1 day rotation. And you'll get a lot of these spots. Typically it happens in the spring of the year, in the fall of the year, whenever the soils are really wet. And it typically happens mainly, or at least for us, it typically happens at the water tub, or in whenever we're using a mineral feeder, it usually happened at the mineral feeder. In previous videos, you've seen that I just dump the minerals out onto the soil on a fence line. I used to think that those minerals being dumped out onto the ground would kill the grass. The cattle usually clean them up. We know how much our livestock are utilizing, and we give them the daily allotted amount of minerals per day for what they'll clean up. Sometimes it's what the recommended dosage or the recommended amount per day. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but we adjust accordingly. They do graze it down tight to the ground, but those plants recover just fine. They don't die out, and besides, that's less grass that I have growing into the fence and shorten the fence out. But let's take a look at this. You can see there's some pugging in the soil. We had some soil disturbance. But what else do we see here? In 30 days, if we were on a 30-day rest period on our soils, and we come back here, there's a good chance that the livestock would congregate here again for whatever reason. I find that quite frequently, that they congregate in certain areas. By having a huge seed bank in our soils, you can see the little grass seedlings popping up. There's literally thousands and thousands of them there, and there's more there than what would be there if we were to drill that in, or even broadcast it for that matter. There's just pounds and pounds of grass seed here, and that grass is coming back and having a longer rest period. We're going to walk up into a field, a couple fields over, and take a look. We had something similar to this a year ago. I guess it'd be more than a year ago. It'd be the spring of 2018. This is the summer of 2019, so it's a little over a year. We're going to look at the rest period. You can see there's little clover plants coming in here. Here's a plant that didn't get killed by trampling. It appears to be canary grass. There's some fescue there. It didn't get killed. You can see the thousands and thousands of little grass seedlings coming. Used to be when we were on a 1-day rotation and we had these bare spots, we carried a broadcast seeder with us. We carried a broadcast seeder with us. I'm going to show it to you. I brought it along. I don't carry it anymore. Because having a seed bank, we don't need it as much. But this here's an awesome little seeder. It's waterproof. It carries a fair amount of seed. You can just throw it in the back of the buggy, and I store the crank for it in here, and you can meter that seed very well with this little seeder. Like I said, we don't use it much anymore. The seed that's in here has been in here for pretty close to a year now. You can see it. There's a lot of different seed. There's fescue in there, 3 or 4 different kinds of clover. There might be some alfalfa in there. There should be some orchard grass. I can't identify any orchard grass seed at this time, so it might not have any orchard grass in this But there's also annual ryegrass in there. It's a great grass for getting a jump start and getting it back. You can see the little itty bitty seeds there. That's canary grass. Canary grass is a little bit hard to get started because of the germination on it. Typically the germination on canary grass is 18 to 21 days. So so you have to really plan to get canary grass established on your farm. We can talk more about that at a later date. But I just thought that this was interesting, or something that you would be interested in, of looking at the resilience that we had built into our system and reducing an input. We're going to take a walk and go up and look at where we had a spot similar to this here, like I said, in the spring of 2018. This field here is a field that we actually cover cropped last year with clover, chicory. There were some annuals in it, sorghum sudan grass. See the purple flowers? That's chicory. But then this spring we come in and we dormancy, or actually it would be late winter, we come in and dormant seeded this field with eastern gamma grass. And there's eastern gamma grass growing in there, and I don't worry so much about the competition on the eastern gamma grass because it's one of the grasses that's really shade tolerant. It's one of the most shade tolerant grasses, native grasses that we have. And I've been on farms where they've put eastern gamma grass in, and it's still years and years ago, let's say 20 years ago that it was planted, and that eastern gamma grass is still there. It's short, it's little plants because of competition, but through management we'll be able to bring that eastern gamma grass stand on and get it really strong, like one of the other stands that I'm going to show you in another video. This field here was a new seeding last fall. We actually drilled this in. You can see those big tall plants in there. Those are volunteer giant gray striped sunflowers. They kind of come up on their own. Sunflowers is a really good forage for the livestock. Probably out of all the forage testing that we've done over the years, it's probably has the highest feed value or highest feed quality of any of the forages that we've tested. I guess I walked past that little spot that we had very similar to where we started at. This field 2 years ago was pretty much a field that was, I don't know, I would consider it almost done. And through management we were able to bring it back. We give it a long rest period and let things go to seed, and it's in the seed. We've already grazed this once this year, and it's just thicker and thick in there. There's a lot of feed in there. Take a look. But this field here was pretty much, it was done. It needed redone. And in the conventional way of thinking, but we give it long rest periods, we let it go to seed. You can see how thick and actually how tall this stuff is. A lot of quack grass in here. You can see there's some alfalfa. Here's a toxic plant that we have growing on the farm, horse nettle. We graze it, the cows readily graze it. As we talked about milkweed in another video, and toxic plants being it's less than 10% of the rotation or rations, we don't really get too concerned about it. Now if we had a whole field of horse nettle, we might have to do something different, but we manage it as it is. It's not worth getting a spray can out and spraying it or pulling it or clipping it. If we clip it, we have the potential of setting back our other plants and reducing the overall dry matter yield for the year, so we just manage it. But right here's the spot that we had similar to what we had over where we started at. Mother Nature has healed herself. We give her ample time for rest. And we had a lot of seed in our seed bank. We didn't put a single seed here. We let it recover on its own. Now that bare spot that's over there where the little itty bitty baby grass seedlings are growing, it would stay bare and look horrible and reduce your overall dry matter yield for the year if we come back on there in a very short period of time, say 30 to 40 days. But this particular field over here where we had that bare spot, it's going to have a long rest period. We probably won't come back into that field until October sometime. So those little grass seedlings will be well established, or established well enough that whenever we do come back in to graze it, we won't kill them out and we'll have a very nice stand of grass in there. This field here's got approximately 40 days of rest on it. You can see it's very, very high quality. And it used to be we'd try to get back on fields like that and graze it, but through forage testing, that field is way more nutritious than what your livestock need. So we want to let it go a little longer, let those plants recover, let them drive those roots deep into the soil so we have some more resilience. By having those deep roots, we're able to access more nutrients, and we're also able to access more water. And by having all that cover on the ground, we're trapping water. We're in mid-August, or we're in the beginning of August, so things are starting to get dry. This spring was really, really wet. We were able to hold moisture, but as things warm up and get dry, cool season grasses have a tendency to slow down. We don't suffer the summertime slump as much here on the farm as we used to, because having those deep root systems, leaving the cover so the soil doesn't get too warm or too dry. Just thought that would be something you'd like to see, and hopefully it helps you out. Don't forget to subscribe, leave comments, hit the like button, and smash that bell so you can get notifications whenever we post new videos. Have a great day. Let your grazing be prosperous.